Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Screaming for Progress podcast. I'm your host, as always, Stuart Lang. If you want to find me on Twitter, it's at OutAfterDark216, and if you want to follow the show, it's at Progress Scream. This is a very special edition of the show. I don't have Liam with me as I normally do. Instead, I'm joined by the creator, the director, the visionary behind the upcoming movie, This is Progress, Dale Beaumont-Brown. Dale, how you doing?
Bit weird now that you've called me a visionary, but other than that, yeah, I'm good.
Well, that's I just kind of stumbled out my mouth, that word, to be honest. I think I've probably been watching Dark Place over the last few days, and it's just been embedded. But yeah,
funnily enough, the guy who created Dark Place, he lives here in Norwich, I believe, which is where I'm based. I've seen him walk around the city a few times.
That's
is it Matt Holmes?
Yeah, that's Garth Marenghi himself. That's a scary coincidence. Is Norwich big enough for two visionaries? Who knows? We're not here to talk about British comedy from the early 2000s, though. We're here to talk about This is Progress. So, Dale, in your own words, for those people listening to the show who may not have heard of it, what's the movie about?
Well, as you can kind of imagine from the title, it's about a company in London, a wrestling promotion in London called Progress Wrestling. We derived the title, This is Progress, from something that their fans like to chant, which is This is Progress. And also it's kind of got a nice double entendre meaning as well, because the documentary kind of acts as an introduction to Progress as well. So it works in a couple of different ways. And in essence, what we have is a feature-length documentary that charts Progress Wrestling's ascension to the pinnacle of UK independent wrestling, whilst dissecting what makes them, their wrestlers, and the fans stand out as some of the most exciting in the world. So, I mean, to me, it's a film about varying different aspects such as passion and community and family, and along the way we follow the perspective of a professional wrestler through the eyes of Mark Haskins, a wrestling fan, and that's through a gentleman called Paul Lee, and then you've got the three promoters themselves, that's Jim Smallman, John Briley and Glenn Joseph, over the course of 18 months, right when they start to become stupendously popular. So we kind of through the verite approach, we witness through hard work and love and sacrifice how this grassroots company can turn into a global cultural phenomenon, with punk rock pro wrestling as their maxim.
Yeah.
And we can kind of see how they kind of went from being just not just a cool thing, but wrestling as an art form to be respected.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a sort of interesting timeline, personally for me, because it's around the same sort of time as I started getting interested in watching Progress. Was around the time where sort of it's almost, I don't want to say like to the day that you guys started making your film, but like it was the sort of build up to the Brixton Academy show and Mark Haskins eventually winning the title. That was kind of what turned my head towards Progress, and I've been watching ever since. It's now the only wrestling I watch. I mean, before you started, getting in touch with Progress, or starting to put the plans together for this documentary, I mean, were you a wrestling fan? Were you a Progress fan beforehand, or what was your sort of history with the sport?
I certainly wasn't a Progress fan because I had no idea who or what they were in the slightest. I was a wrestling fan when I was a kid, as many people were. Watched Hogan and Warrior at WrestleMania 6, and then I was a fan of the plush toys and stuff, and I used to go around friends' houses to watch it, and then went away, and then got to my late teen years when I was in college, and me and a bunch of friends used to coalesce around Mum and Dad's house to watch Friday Night Raw. It was Friday night over here. So
on Sky.
Watch Raw on the Friday night on Sky, and then we'd all get together for pay-per-views and stuff. And then I went away to university and just kind of forgot about wrestling completely. And then just every now and then I would just dabble, kind of just watch some things, here and there. And I was getting towards the end of production on my first feature documentary, Grassroots: The Cannabis Revolution.
Yeah.
where I was looking for something else to do, and whilst we were looking for something else, myself and my co-producer Ross, who also edits This Is Progress, and who I used to watch WWE and all that with in our teen years, we started watching wrestling again. We were watching a little bit of New Japan, and because I got a subscription to the WWE network, so I was watching and rekindling some elements of the old school ECW area and that, so that was cool. And then our friend James, who used to watch wrestling with us around Mum and Dad's, who lives in Iceland, he sent us a message saying, "Have you guys heard of Progress?" And I was like, "No, not heard of them at all." And watched their free show. It was Chapter 13 on the YouTube channel. Yeah. Listened to an interview with Jim Smallman on Scroobius Pip's podcast. And I was like, they sound like a really interesting bunch. Really cool. Got a really down to earth grassroots fan base. There's something about them that I liked, and for the longest time I've been wanting to make a documentary about wrestling ever since seeing Beyond the Mat, and I didn't really know what or who it needed to be about. I just knew it had to have a strong British identity, a strong British sensibility, and then saw them pitch the idea to them about the potential of doing a short film, which they loved. This was 3 days before Super Strong Style Weekender in 2016, and they brought me and Ross along to a show, and it's like when you experience wrestling in person. It's quite a visceral experience and reaction you get from it, and the light bulb went off, and I was like, okay, I know now that I need to make a film about these guys. But it was never the intention from the get-go to make it as a feature documentary. That all just kind of fell into place organically and accidentally, but rather nicely as well, because by getting to know Jim, John and Glenn and Paul and Mark over those months making the short film in the build up to their biggest show ever at the Brixton Academy, I just really got to know them well, got to see what their lives were like behind the scenes and everything. So it all just happened organically, and then we just decided around about August of 2016 that we just take the plunge and just continue filming for another year or so, and just try and flesh it out into the feature that we'll be releasing in the next few months. So I just decided to stick to my original plan of, let's finish the short, let's release the short for free, as we always intended to do. So we released it for free via Progress's YouTube channel and their on-demand service, as a way to prove to the fans and wrestling fans and film fans in general that this is what we can do for no budget, for zero money. Yeah. What we would like to do is we'd like to just take the hours and hours and hours, the dozens of hours of footage that we've already got, and just flesh that out and continue filming for another year, and just keep and just turn it into a feature documentary. So yeah, it was all kind of a happy accident, really, but one that irrevocably changed my experience making this film forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's I will say that well, I suppose thank you for allowing me a sort of early look at the movie in preparation for this. The review that's currently on FPG News and I believe on w2mnet.com, and hopefully by the time you listen to these words on 411 Mania as well. But yeah, obviously, big appreciation for that. The version that I've not seen, I believe, isn't finished yet. There's still a few things to be added, but I mean, one thing you mentioned about Beyond the Mat, I mean, it's these sort of wrestling movies like Beyond the Mat and The Backyard and things that they aren't movies about wrestling, and I think that's something that's done really well here as well. Is that there's no prior knowledge of Progress needed to watch this. There's no real. I don't even think you need a passion for wrestling or an understanding of wrestling to go into this and watch this. I mean, I'm like yourself. I mean, I'm in my sort of early mid-30s. I probably watched. It was always the friend who had the hacked cable box that you went round. It was a Friday night round to watch Raw. This Saturday was probably misspent if you didn't end up jumping off of one of your friends' sheds onto another one of your friends. So it's probably that same sort of thing. But it's that. It's the trying to think the right way to put this. Sorry, I'm stuttering a little. But yeah, it's the ability to watch this without knowledge of wrestling that I think is done so well in this. And I mean, I watched the movie with my partner who doesn't actually even like wrestling, like she doesn't care, and she was genuinely moved at parts of it. Some of the interviews, some of the moments in it, which I'm not going to spoil, but genuinely captured some like really poignant stuff with some of the wrestlers, with the fans, and yeah, it's I just kind of wanted to lay that praise out there, and certainly think that I hope that at some point that we'll be mentioning, it's in the same sort of breath as Beyond the Mat, as one of these sort of transcendent movies that you don't actually need to watch or indeed care about wrestling to enjoy and take something from. Anyway, that's my little ramble over.
Did you, when you were mentioning there, just a quick point, when you mentioned Beyond the Mat there, did I hear you mention a film called The Backyard as well? I
did, yeah. Have you seen it?
I'm in it.
You're in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So during the spell,
right?
When myself, my friend Ross, and my friend James were watching Raw and SmackDown and pay-per-views when we were in college, what we also did was we founded a backyard wrestling federation called ENBW, East Norfolk Backyard Wrestling, because we wanted to emulate some of our heroes and also just kind of fill in the blanks of some of the things that we weren't necessarily getting with WWE and things that we would see on ECW, and also because there was a real culture right around then of backyard wrestling, because the internet was just becoming a big thing.
Yeah,
it was becoming more and more accessible to teenagers like us and to the world in general. So it meant through forums and everything, you were able to post about wrestling, and not only that, you were able to, film your own stuff in the backyard of you doing crazy shit, and then post it online in these short clips. So I kind of think what we were doing back then, because we would steal the college's equipment, borrow. We would take the college's equipment, because we were all media and film studies students. So we would borrow, the college's camera equipment. We'd go and film shows on the Sunday. We'd come back to college and ingest the tapes, the VHS tapes, on the Monday, and we'd digitize it and then edit shows, get them on, burn them back onto VHS and sell VHSs. And because back then, this is kind of pre-YouTube days and everything, you couldn't really post full videos online. So we were able to do that by teasing out and post 2 to 3 second long clips. So I suppose nowadays you call them GIFs. And of our work, and we'd have a website, and we became really quite well known in the UK. So we were I kind of think we were Progress. We were similar to what Progress are doing today. So we were kind of Progress for the backyard wrestling scene 16, 17 years ago. So when a filmmaker called Paul Huff, who was born in London, found out about what we were doing, he said, I'm making a feature documentary about the backyard wrestling scene in America. But I'd really like to have an element of the backyard wrestling scene in the UK, and you guys seem to be the top promotion. Do you mind if I come over to one of your shows, Backyard Brawl, I believe it was, and film you? And we were like, yeah, cool. So if you go back and watch the scene in the UK in the backyard, and you see a very, very skin-headed gentleman with an entirely different jaw called Big D Smith. That's me.
Oh, wow. That is, I will point out, that is a pure terrifying coincidence. In no way there's been, a creepy level of research done here or anything like that. That is just an insane coincidence. But, that's 2 good movies that I've seen that you've been involved in. So yeah, that's excellent. Wow, actually, I'm pretty shocked at that. I don't really know how to move on from that now. Wow, I think we've peaked.
We peaked far too early.
We have peaked very early. So obviously, you said that it started off live as an original short. I mean, Was there a particular moment or catalyst to put the movie onto Kickstarter? Like, was there whose idea was it? Was it your own? Was it the idea of Progress? Like, was it a conversation with you and Jim, or a particular sort of event that went, do you know what, we're doing this. We're going to put it on Kickstarter and hope to raise the money.
Well, I'd always approached the film, even the short, with the intention of, I don't know what my next feature documentary is going to be. I'm going to be following these guys for a short film for the next 5 months. So over that 5 months, I'm going to collate a lot of footage. So I'm going to approach this short as if I was filming it as a feature.
Yeah.
So that after I was filming for I think it was about 3 months, it just organically came about, and I'd been thinking about it for a while, and then it was just like, right, we need to turn this into a feature, because I was seeing so much stuff behind the scenes and backstage and behind the curtain. Things like, the women's revolution of wrestling that was hot in America, and now you've just got all of these insanely talented women over here in the UK plying their craft. The revolution that the internet has got, and the role that plays in people like Progress's lives, and the idea of wrestlers coming through the training schools and stuff. There was all these other different issues that I wanted to explore, and other themes that I really wanted to explore, but I didn't have time to in a 20-minute film.
Yeah.
So I think the original conversation was with John when I was filming with him for some things that didn't actually make the cut of the documentary. Pardon me. And I said, I've got all this footage, and I know where I need to go and what I need to do in order to finish the film. But I know that at the same time, in order to do that, we need to raise some money, because I physically can't do it myself. I can't do it. But we've released the film. We can release the film, and we can use that as a proof of concept to show people that this is what we can do for zero money. And then the short just became insanely popular very quickly. So it was a case of, I said to John, we can do this, but the only way we can do this is we need to run a crowdfunding campaign, a Kickstarter campaign, which I had experience of in the past. I've done 2 crowdfunding campaigns for films, one for an hour-long 4-part web series, and one for my previous film, Grassroots, the Cannabis Revolution. With that, we decided to do a Kickstarter to fund vital post-production costs. And it was much the same thing with This Is Progress, because by the time we were looking at doing it, which was April of last year, 2017, I'd already filmed maybe 85% of the documentary already from just, trips that I did myself, from money that I put into the film myself. By then, we've got a really diehard, loyal fan base over our social media platforms and our website. We've got really good, good number of people who had watched the short and seen what we're about. So there was a real thirst for it. So by the time it came to us doing the Kickstarter campaign, I didn't know, obviously my hope was that it would be a success, but I didn't know or expect it to be such a crazy, wild success that it was. Because on the first day, we raised £9,500.
Yeah.
Which was basically 40% of the entire budget, which was what we was looking for.
Yeah.
Which was insane. And then we raised the entire budget. We were looking for £25,000. We raised that with a week to go. So then by the time it came to the end of the campaign, we'd raised an additional £8,000, which meant that we were able to do everything we wanted, included all of the push goals.
Yeah.
So we had over 600 people in the end contributing to this campaign. So it really proves that it's not just me that wants to see this film. We've got, and that it's not just my film. I firmly believe that this is a film that belongs to our audience and to audiences out there who haven't seen it yet. I really think that this is ours, rather than just mine.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, I think there's I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see this. I think not only from the perspective of knowing and enjoying Progress already, but I feel like it almost works as a sort of jumping in point for the promotion as well. I've had like people I've worked with on like previous websites and stuff like that who aren't familiar with Progress have messaged me about having read this review or have heard of Progress as a result, and they're wanting to see this movie. You know, I'm not saying because of my review, but they're wanting to see it. They want to understand what Progress is about, in a sort of like condensed, or that's the wrong word, but you know, rather than sitting and watching 10 shows, is such like a good insight into what it's all about. You know, it's not just turning up or watching these guys go, like from the promoters to the fans. I think it's very apparent through watching this that everyone's so invested, more than just like switching on WWE on a Monday night. Everyone who is here like is invested. Everyone who takes part, from the ring crew all the way up. And I think that's captured throughout the movie. I mean, you mentioned with the push goals and stuff for the Kickstarter. Who's I take it was a sort of joint effort coming up with the rewards for Kickstarter. I seem to remember there was one for being able to name a show. If I remember correctly, I was having a look when I pledged. I think I did. I'm sorry to admit, I think I did a basic one. I think I'm expecting a T-shirt. I forget.
Okay.
But yeah,
Thanks,
like
Stuart.
yeah, that's yeah, it's kind of hold up my hands. It's, yeah, I was excited to see it. Anyway, yeah, like, I think it was like pledge £500. Was that something that you floated to Jim, or did they offer that up as a reward, or?
I got to be honest, that was their idea because, and I don't want to sound big-headed here or anything, but I'd had that idea, but I was too scared to pitch it to them because it's their baby and it's their thing.
Yeah.
So I just poo-pooed it in the end, and I thought, no, they're not going to go for it. And I said, have you guys got any suggestions on what you'd like to contribute to this? And and they were like, well, what if someone could name one of our shows?
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh man, that would be amazing. That would be so amazing. And then, so it turns out the gentleman who named it is a guy from Texas.
Yeah.
And he named the last Manchester show "Take Me Underground." I think it was Chapter 63, and he actually travelled over from Houston just to go to the show that he actually named.
Yeah, that's
rather special.
I actually watched that show a few days ago. And yeah, they gave him a shout out at the start of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's awesome that like people all around the world already excited to see this, excited for the release. I mean, at this point in time, do you have any sort of knowledge about the sort of wider release of the movie? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, we have sort of a rough plan in place. There's certain things that we need to iron out, but we've got as wide a release as possible planned for these sort of things. This is one of the pluses of doing these things by yourself, because I run a production company, so my job day to day is being a filmmaker. So when it comes to these sort of films and these sort of practices, I don't answer to anyone. Everything is decided on and done by myself and a very small team of people. So it means we don't have to make a certain amount of money. We don't have to recoup a certain amount of money for investors and all of that, because it's all just been done in-house by ourselves, or via the generosity of our crowdfunders, the people who come on board and contributed to our campaign. So it was a case of we we're in control of our own destiny with this now. But being that Progress is such a popular entity, and that wrestling is such an enticing and popular thing in the UK at the minute, we're fairly confident that we can find an audience for this, on a global scale rather than just in the UK, because wrestling it's a hot thing at the minute, and a lot of people are looking at the UK because it just seems to be the best scene in the world right now. So you've got pockets of fandoms, wrestling fandom, like all over the world, in the US and Canada and Mexico, Japan, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, and all up and down the UK. So those are just a few countries, but some of the biggest in terms of population. So being that it's an independent film, entirely self-financed with myself and our crowdfunders, my intention is to go independent as possible. So we'll go down a film festival route. As a start, I plan on submitting to around 75 film festivals. We're about halfway there in terms of submissions. I'd like to get into all of them if possible, because they're all scattered all around the world. So the intention is to play film festivals from summer onwards for maybe 6 months or so, and then after that, the good thing about film festivals is I get to get face to face with sales agents and distributors and people within the film industry who can then take my vision to additional audiences around the world. So I want this in cinemas. So that this is one of the things that we're able to do with film festivals, and with some of the money we raise for the Kickstarter, is we can put on screenings up and down the country, but we can have screenings in cinemas as a part of film festivals too. So the intention is to have a run of film festivals, then we'll do a limited screening run around cinemas around the UK, and in England and Scotland and Wales and Ireland and Northern Ireland, and any other countries where we can have film festivals. Fantastic, we'll do that too. And then the intention is to have an online release, so we release through various video on demand models. So the obvious candidates that spring to mind are places like iTunes and Netflix and Amazon. And I want those places because Netflix has been a really special thing for documentary over the past few years, because people have always had, people always have an intrigue and an interest in the unknown, the things outside of their own personal bubble. And if you're not a part of the Progress bubble or the wrestling bubble, I don't think you'd necessarily know who or what the hell they are. I'm guilty as charged on that. It got back to me 2 years ago. I had no idea. So I can definitely see a film like this sitting on Netflix, or just someone just coming across it on a Sunday night or something, just looking for something interesting to watch, and just like, punk rock pro wrestling. All right, this seems like an interesting topic, and coming out the other side, just like, what? I didn't even know that existed, and that's cool. That's kind of something that I want to do, because and I think you alluded to it in your point earlier about the film being accessible. My intention wasn't to make this for wrestling fans. My intention wasn't to make this to non-wrestling fans. I wanted to make this film so that anyone, whether you're a wrestling fan or not, can gain an appreciation for who and what they do. Giving up on your dreams or following your dreams, and just being so passionate about something that you give up a lot of things, a lot of responsibilities and things at home. So it was always my intention that I basically wanted to have my cake and eat it. I feel like there's a lot in this film that wrestling fans can get, but I wouldn't call it your atypical wrestling documentary. I call it a documentary about a wrestling company. Because I don't think that's what it's about. To me, it's not about wrestling. It's about family and passion and those sort of themes. So I think that there's going to be a lot in there that wrestling fans will recognise and relate to. But I also think if you're not a wrestling fan, you'll still be able to get something from it emotionally. I'm hoping that you'll be able to, bond with and emote with the characters in there that lay their heart and soul on the line to me. So it's been a really special experience.
I can certainly agree with that. As I said already, my partner watched it with me, and she was there was a few points where she was properly taken by these people who she had no knowledge of. Speaking of sort of no knowledge of it, obviously you didn't have any sort of knowledge of Progress going into this. How did you make the decision to focus around Mark Haskins as your primary wrestler involved in this? Did that happen by accident, or did that sort of come about after one or two filming sessions, or?
Yeah, it kind of came by accident, to be honest. And it wasn't. I wouldn't have even said it was through filming Mark that I realised that Mark was the person. It was through having. I just been filming a few weeks, and I didn't know who I wanted my wrestler to be. And I did an interview with Mark at Chapter 32, 5,000 to 1 at the Electric Ballroom in Camden. And the interview was fine. Mark was fine. Mark was interesting and keen, and we got along. But then it was when I knew that Mark was the person for it, when I put the camera down and we just had a chat after the interview, and we ended up speaking for like 45 minutes. And I was just at the time my wife was 6 months pregnant, and I was just talking to Mark about his experiences of being a dad and being able to split his time between being following his career and doing something that he's so passionate about, which is how I feel the same about my job in filmmaking.
Yeah.
But also being able to be a role model and a good husband and a good father at home, because obviously there's a lot of sacrifice there, a lot of time that he's giving up by being a wrestler, because his job dictates that he spends the majority of his time on the road. So that's a physical amount of time that he's spending away from his daughter Lily, his son Jack, and his wife Vicky. So I was just discussing all of my kind of personal anxieties and things about, those things that I was worried about being a dad. How can I be a role model for my daughter, and how can I balance my work and my life and everything. So we just really bonded over just talking about our partners and our lives and our kids, and in my case our future kids. And so we just chatted about that really. And I just, again, like light bulb moment, I thought, well, here you've got this two-headed hydra of a dude who is ultimate like hard case badass in the ring, but then as soon as he's backstage or at home, he's just a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Yeah.
And I really admired that in Mark, and that made me want to follow his journey more. I wanted to get to know that side of Mark Haskins. I wanted to get to know the side of Mark Haskins that people don't get to see, that he shows me when we're at home or when I'm on the road with him, and just how big of a presence in his life Vicky is. So I wasn't expecting, how can you not? But Vicky became such a huge part of the film through just hanging out with them and just spending time with them and their family. Nothing was off limits with us. So I just, when talking to Mark, I wanted to know who he was and what defined him and what he was like at home.
Yeah. It's actually such a strange thing. I liked Mark as a wrestler, but actually became quite a big fan because we have the same car, and it was just that kind of switch in my head. I went, what a guy! What a guy! He's the same. Good choice in cars, right? Obviously there's a few other guys that you focus on. I mean, we see Dahlia Black quite a lot in the sort of second part of the movie, and sort of Jim, John Briley, Glenn Joseph, obviously big focus. With those guys, I mean, I take it they were quite happy and open from the start. Was there any sort of trepidation from anyone within the company that you were sort of pulling back the curtain at all on them, or you don't need to name names or anything, obviously, but like if was there anyone that wasn't quite so happy with the documentary, or any sort of aberration at all?
Not really. I mean, when we had our initial meeting, John had expressed about the fact that he wasn't really interested in being interviewed. Like, he didn't mind being filmed and stuff, but he was just nervous about having a complete stranger come into their lives.
Yeah.
Document all of their secrets, all of the social aspects of their lives, or their baby, just documenting their baby. And I completely understand those worries, because at the end of the day, when I'm pitching a project to them, they don't know me. They've not known me as long as they know each other. They don't trust me. It's my responsibility as a documentary filmmaker to gain their trust, not to exploit it, but to make them realize that I can be trusted with this information. So a lot of the hardship comes from just convincing them that I'm not a charlatan and a con man. I'm not out to make them look bad or make them look good, or tell lies or anything like that. At the end of the day, I just want to tell a story that happens to be about them, because they've really stumbled onto something. They've captured lightning in a bottle, which is very rare. Then how have they captured lightning in a bottle? Do they even know what they've got? And I don't think they do. I still don't think they know what they've got or how they've done it. They're obviously doing something right, but I don't think they know what that is. But that's cool, because that's them to a T. Is they're a bunch of normal, modest guys who don't know what they've stumbled upon. So I'm really proud of the fact that John didn't really want to be involved in that way, but over time I gained his trust, and we were able to have conversations on camera. And as you can attest to after seeing the film, he's become as big a part of the film as Jim and Glenn have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's some really emotional, strong scenes with John as well. And there's a lot of stuff that he does, behind the scenes, away from Jim and Glenn, that they just don't have the time to do. And John does a lot of stuff for Progress. He's very much the beating heart of the company.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that wouldn't necessarily get done, I don't think, if John was involved. I'm sure Glenn and Jim would step up, and I'm not trying to say that what they're doing is or cheapen what they do.
No.
But I'm sure that they would absolutely agree with me that John works bloody hard.
Yeah.
And he should have more time off because he's a Terminator when it comes to work.
Yeah.
So it was just the case of I firmly believe, I think it's about that first meeting, getting them first of all to like me and appreciate what the vision that I've got and the story that I want to tell. But sometimes it just comes from that you just have to just trust me for now and just let me film so that you can see my methodology and see what I'm up to, so you can see how I work.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of elements to the film that's very verite and fly on the wall. Because a lot of the time, sometimes it's just me with them with the camera. It's just me not necessarily saying much, just observing. And this is one of the best things for me as a filmmaker. Is like I liked going into the film not knowing who they were or anything about them, because ignorance is bliss. Because it's a tool in my toolbox. It helps me to answer questions. It helps me to ask questions that I think audience members would like to know the answers to, who don't necessarily know about Progress. So that helps add fuel to that creative fire,
Yeah, it's. I think that was one thing I took really as a Progress fan is just how much John actually does. I mean, obviously, Jim is kind of. He always has been like front and center. He's the main ring announcer. He warms up the crowd. He comes out in the sort of halfway point and talks more. Like he's very present. And Glenn obviously has his stints on commentary now. And John, I don't want to say he gets forgotten about, but when he's sort of up in the production sort of booth, and now and again they sort of nod up to him or sort of mention him. It was really interesting seeing just sort of how much he does, what he does, in terms of, I mean, all three of the guys. It was actually very interesting seeing just what it takes to put the shows together. As a Progress fan, it was very fascinating to watch the whole picture come together, rather than it just being a bunch of lads knocking around on a Sunday afternoon in Electric Ballroom or at a hall in Birmingham or Sheffield or wherever they happen to be. It was the whole business of it, the whole picture coming together. As a fan, it was extremely fascinating, and the sort of the more human moments are the bits that everyone else are going to latch on to, I think. And as I said already, it doesn't matter if you know who Mark and Vicky Haskins are, or if you've ever stood next to Paul Lee at a show, or been to Jim Smallman's stand-up, or seen Glenn as Buddy Holly around. None of that matters when you watch, because it's told to you. You're led to understand, and as a result, take that from it. So
because John didn't get it like when I said about me filming him at the lockup and him just doing his admin duties and stuff, because he was like, you're filming Jim on the road while he's going around doing comedy and making people laugh. You're filming Glenn going to be Buddy Holly on the stage in front of 600 people, and then you want to come film me in my living room typing emails and putting merch together. He said, that's boring. People are going to hate that. And I said, no, people need to see this. People need to see this side of what you do. It's really important. And he was like, oh, okay, all right. So he went with it. And then, I think that it was just the case. It was baby steps. It was just kind of him figuring out, and eventually I think opening up and trusting me enough that it got to where it was. So I'm glad that we were able to document maybe some of those moments that might be to John that he thinks that they're menial or not necessarily mean much to people, but it's those moments in the film when you realise, this really glamorous what they do, but then John's stuff's not so glamorous, but it's all stuff that needs to get done.
I mean, I have a bunch of Progress merch, and sort of seeing that bit like I did, it was like a sort of wry smile across my face. Like, that's where it came from. That's pretty cool. It was in that lockup. My hoodie and my snapback were from that lockup. That's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. You know, he packed them with his bare hands.
Everything.
Good for him. What I'll do is I'll not take up any more of your time, Dale. But thanks very much for coming on to the show and speaking to me about the film. It was excellent. I wish you every bit of success with it, and I genuinely mean that. It's fantastic. I can't wait for more people to see it, mainly so I can talk to people about it. Like, it's this embargo is killing me. But yeah, like, I genuinely can't wait for people to start seeing it and for it to be successful. Is there anything that you want to pimp's a terrible word to use, promote while you're on your website and stuff like that, if you want to do that just now?
By all means, yeah. We've just launched, rather shameless plug here, we've just launched a shop on our website, www.progress.docu.com. We've done that out of response from all of our amazing supporters, because there's been a bunch of people who weren't able to back us when we had the Kickstarter available. So we've just made a couple of items available on our shop. We've made a theatrical poster available, and you can pre-order the film on our website as well. So that's any money we make from that. It means that we're able to get it into additional festivals and get additional PR, and the money just can go back into the film and getting it out to more people. So that's progressdocu.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/progressdocu, or on twitter.com/progressdocu, and it's instagram.com/this.is.progress. And thank you ever so much for your time in interviewing me, Stuart, and saying such lovely things about the film.
No problem at all.
It's always nerve-wracking sending it out, and I don't send the film out to people because I want positive reviews. There have been a mixture of things, so it's always lovely hearing from a fan talking about the film and what it means to them. So I thank you so much for your time and your efforts on this.
No, not at all. Like I say, I can't wait for more people to see it, and every bit of luck in the future, Dale. From
Thanks,
Screaming
mate.
for Progress, that's all. If you want to get us on Twitter, it's Progress Scream. You want to find myself, it's at Out After Dark 216. And until the next show, as always, don't be a dick.